have been made. In that also they have said that uh, if if this type of cancellation charges is taxable because these are contractual arrangement made between the parties. They are specifically mentioned in the contract that if you will cancel this in this much number of days, this much amount will be deducted, and if you will cancel in this much number of days, this will be charges. So these are part and parcel of their contractual arrangement, and they can very much covered, and that is why it will be taxable. It is a part and parcel of the supply itself, and it is itself a supply of services. So how many of you think that this view is sustainable, or it is somewhere going beyond and saying it, getting it covered?
Uh,
It Yeah,
I
Right.
think that circular in itself is contradictory. Because
uh,
in the case of hotel, it is saying that it will be taxable because it is written. But as we go ahead in regulation to other services, it says that these liquidated damages will not be taxable. How come these
Right.
cancellation charges related to hotel are not liquidated damages? They are the same thing. If we consider it, the nature is same. So this circular in itself, according to me, is contradictory.
correct. Yes. There isn't some contradiction. I agree that for liquidated damages, they are saying that it is not taxable, and for the cancellation charges, they are saying that it is taxable.
Right. And in every contract, we have this clause of cancellation of liquidated damages. So whether it is hotel industry, when I'm making the cancellation or any supply of goods related to construction activities or anything that we have, everywhere there is this liquidated damages clause. So we cannot, distinguish the hotel industry clause with this clause.
See, Ayushi, here the distinction is done by saying that liquidated damages is a compensation.
Right.
Whereas for cancellation, they are saying that it's a provision of service.
Correct. But
How they could go ahead with this, so that is the thing.
Anupta,
So
my
they're saying
point
that,
is,
yeah, it's a
yeah,
compensation
sorry.
in the agreement. LD, liquidated damages, is a
Uh,
compensation in the agreement. अगर वो agreement में
uh,
है, then only it is not a part of supply. If it is not a part in the agreement and you have given it separately, then it will be taxable.
okay.
But if
There is one point that I would like to make. So
yeah,
recently, I am doing a tax review compliance of one company. There it is written that it is a real estate company. So there it is written that in case the buyer cancels the flat,
yeah,
so 25,000 rupees will be mandatorily charged as cancellation charges, cancellation fees, right? And then they have defined some parameters according to which they will charge the cancellation fees. So
yeah.
25,000 is fixed, and then there are parameters if within this days, this days. So it is written in the BBA, builder buyer agreement, right? So now when I have written it specifically in the agreement whether these becomes taxable
Yeah.
or is it, yeah,
No,
yes.
here the view is that, in fact, I will not name, but in a
Hmm,
particular state, investigation authorities are also
hmm,
investigating this matter for real estate companies.
hmm,
Here
hmm,
the view is that since this cancellation of the agreement is a part of the agreement wherein you have beforehand telling in the agreement that अगर आप cancel करते हो, then we will be charging this as cancellation charges. So they are of the
hmm.
view that this is the nature of fees, and that's why there will be GST on this. This is unlike
Right.
liquidated damages, wherein I'm paying a compensation because I could not complete the work on time. So they're
but
saying that these are kind
but
of fees that you
Anupta,
have collected.
with my limited experience, what I have seen in almost every contract, I have seen this compensation clause. Whether
Yes.
it is a cancellation clause, whether it is a compensation clause, like in every contract, we make a compensation clause that if this is not done in this much of time, then we will charge this much, or you are liable to compensate us the losses that we have suffered because of you. Anything
Yeah.
sort of that is everywhere written. So again, if we go by this view, then everything should be taxable or nothing should be taxable.
Right. No, this about this real estate thing, we are also taking a view that once when
Hmm,
I'm already paying it, when I've collected the advance, I've already
hmm,
paid the taxes. So when I'm
hmm,
doing the cancellation of the particular thing, So that is not a separate consideration that is flowing to me.
Right.
Correct. I mean, there is one case law of Mumbai High Court by Mamubai Suchitra, if I'm correct. There also it is related to compensation of rent that was offered by the court. You offer this much of rent for wrongful possession of the premises. Again, that was not written in the contract. For wrongful promotion of whenever it was written that wrongful possession of the premises की वजह से you have to get this much of rent. But court offered that amount of rent, and then again the case went on to High Court for the levy of GST. Again, they said that these are the liquidated damages, and GST will not be levied on it. So,
Chinmayji,
and there is also one tribunal judgment, as far as I remember, related to bounce charges levied by the bank.
नहीं, वो तो they
So
have
again,
again clarified on that.
yes. So again, that is what I'm saying. Now, bounce charges is again when bounce charges, and there is one this prepayment charges when I close pre-closure charges, if I'm correct. So again,
Yeah.
when I take a loan, it is specifically written in the agreement. These will be the bounce charges, or whenever my check gets bounced, it is specifically written. Pre-closure maybe it is specifically written that these will be the charges. Then it is not taxable as per the view of the circular also. But again, cancellation charges of the hotel are taxable as per the same circular.
Yes.
right. And one point, let's say that circular we are discussing, one point which is again raised in the circular I want to discuss with all of you, that it in one of its para 11.2, it says that the facilitation service of allowing cancellation against payment of cancellation charges is also a natural part of this bundle, and it is invariably supplied by all the supplier of passenger transportation services as naturally bundled and in conjunction with the principal supply of transportation in the ordinary course of business. So this circular tries to artificially split the various elements of a single supply and says that cancellation is again a part and parcel of that services, and therefore if cancellation is allowed, it is nothing but a transportation of passenger services only, and that is why it is taxable, even though it is not a tolerating of an act, nothing at that, but it is a transportation of passenger, considering the whole artificially dividing it as an various different elements and cancellation being one element. So principal supply is taxable and they are naturally bundled, it is taxable.
Ramandeep ji, somehow I agree with this part of the circular. Somehow, why I say that is, suppose you're booking a flight, right? Now they have given you the option that you pay 1,000 rupees extra to me, and whenever you will cancel a flight and any date, we won't charge anything to you, right? Or you can change the date at any point of time, then again we will not charge anything. So this is the extra service that I have adopted.
Sir, I want to contradict it into this. Number one,
Right.
when I am allowing cancellation, then I am expressively entering into a contract that I will tolerate this loss.
Right.
I am explicitly entering. So this I think
Right.
does not becomes a transportation of passenger service. It is an
Correct. Okay.
right?
Okay. Okay. So what I was saying is whether it is taxable or not. I am not distinguishing whether it is a composite supply or not.
But
But
sir, we
according
have
to
to
me, it is. Yes.
we
Yes.
have
Yes.
to
Correct.
distinguish
Correct.
what exactly is getting taxed.
Right. Right. Correct. Correct.
I have expressively agreed with you that I will tolerate this act and that is why it is taxable.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Ramandeep and Arbu,
Yes, sir.
when we discuss with reference to the cancellation,
Yes, sir.
isn't it an independent supply altogether?
I also feel, sir, it is not a
So
principle.
once it is an independent supply, it can be subject to levy. It can be covered in the scope of supply. Let us take the example of a banking industry. I make the pay order. I'm paying the charges, but when I'm canceling the pay order, again the charges are collected. Let us take the another industry example, insurance. I take a policy.
Yes.
I surrender in advance, then also the charges are collected.
Yeah.
Airlines also, which we were discussing, there is already instruction provided कि if there is a cancellation, then we will be charging so and so much fees.
Yeah,
It's a contingent event that will happen.
right.
Whether contingent event can be made to subject to tax as per the clause Article 32 of Indian Contract Act, that is a different story to be examined. But it is not a completed, but it is an independent supply. That is what my personal view is.
Sir, I understood with what you said, sir. But
Yeah.
let us compare it with why there is an LD clause in a contract, that it is needed for enforcing a contract. Right, in a similar way, when I am booking something, or I am doing a ticket or a traveling or reserving anything.
Clause is not required for enforcing. Why are we saying LD clause is required for enforcing?
It's never required in the clause.
For enforcing performance.
Yeah, for performance.
For performance.
If wrong performance and no performance, then they can always enforce, no? Or else they can't collect it.
It is only to compensate, not even to deter. Because 73, 74 does not allow more than a reasonable amount to be fixed as this one, kya? Liquidated damages, and courts have said even penalty cannot be levied therefore. It has to be only a reasonable amount required to compensate. Just give me.
Yes, so anybody who wants to contribute into this, please go ahead.
So now the question which is being put forth by Nitin sir is that whether the cancellation can be termed to be an independent supply, independent of the main supply that was made, and if yes, then why it can't be put under the levy?
But why independent? क्या दिया मैंने cancel करके? Can termination be said to be a supply? मैं आके किसी को झपड़ मारूंगा, is it a supply?
No, that is not a supply, but the question is that if I am booking a room.
Let us test it. No, मैं आके किसी को झपड़ मारूंगा, is it a supply? Why is it not a supply? Supply of violence can be a supply, kya? Why it can't be a supply? That is
if it is for a consideration, it can be.
That is because supply has to be something that the other side wants, no? It can't be of something which the other side does not want at all.
Yes.
Can I be said to supply something to someone who does not want it? Can cancellation therefore be supplied?
We have two raise of hand. I think we should allow them to speak.
Yeah. Siddhanji, yeah. You're unmuted.
You're muted, sir. Siddhanji. Siddhanji, you are on mute. Achha, you are not able to do it.
Right now.
Shall I ask my query till then?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, sir, I have one query on that circular. That circular entirely talks about services, but similar situation also happens in goods. Let's say for goods like maize, soya, etc. There is a prevalent market practice that if I contracted today, that I will buy at 25 rupees. And if the rate goes up and the customer cancels the order, whatever is the differential money that the customer pays to me. So let's say I am a factory, I am manufacturing, let's say
एक खत्म करते हैं क्या line ये cancellation का पहले?
Yeah, so it is on the same grounds. It is cancellation of goods.
Yeah.
So let's say I contracted to sell my goods. I am a factory. I contracted to sell my goods at the rate of 25 rupees. But later, after 5 days, the market value of those goods became 20 or 22 rupees. That's why the customer didn't took the delivery. So if in this case, if it is through some broker, etc., that time we collect the differential amount as cancellation charges from them. So can we say this circular will apply even for goods? And let's say if the rate of goods is 5%, only 5%, or if the rates of goods is exempt, GST will not be applicable in that case. Or because currently there is various different practices followed in market. Some are levying 18% GST, some are levying 5% GST, or if exempt, not levying GST.
So, Jugal, you are saying the differential, na, जो भी market में जो rate घट गया उसका differential जो है, that you are charging as compensation.
Yes.
So you had purchased at 25 and you are selling at 22. तब जाके ये कर रहे हो.
So basically, I have manufactured the goods. I agreed to sell at 25, but he didn't took the delivery. उसने उठाया नहीं goods, payment दिया नहीं, इसलिए उसको हम compensation लगाते.
अच्छा.
Which is damages. What else is it? It is the compensation. Which is the question? Is it consideration or compensation? So
Now whether it should be a liquid.
Word consideration is well known in contract law. The
his
word
question is
damages
whether.
is also well known.
No, his question is whether it will be a composite supply. Whether it will be a composite supply.
कंपोजिट और मिक्स्ड के लिए अलग सेशन है. आपके पास आज 2 घंटा है, आप सब कुछ इसमें लेके आओगे तो हाउ आर यू गोइंग टू फिनिश दिस सेक्शन 7? कैंसलेशन क्या है पहले डिस्कस करके आगे बढ़ो. अभी don't bring composite supply and everything. There are other people who are going to do it anyways on that day.
That will be a separate discussion. I think for your answer,
cancellation में और एक point है. Cancellation में और एक point है. If an agreement to supply is really taxable, then bringing about this one, क्या an end to that agreement, उसके लिए चार्जिंग प्रोविजन है क्या टैक्स करने के लिए? सिर्फ अग्रीमेंट पे टैक्स है. टर्मिनेटिंग द अग्रीमेंट पे कहाँ पे है चार्जिंग प्रोविजन में टैक्स?
See, that's why they have
before the supply takes place, everything is in the realm of agreement, correct?
Correct.
तो आई नो ने बोल दिया 7(1)(a) में कि अग्रीमेंट पे टैक्स है. टैक्स सिर्फ अग्रीमेंट के एग्जिस्टेंस पे हो सकता है. Where is the question of bringing a levy of tax on cancellation, which is basically bringing the agreement to an end?
So this was the problem that was in phase 2. That's why 7(1)(a) has come into the picture.
Which one?
7(1)(a. कि अगर वो होता है तब जाके आप देखो कि agreeing or not agreeing. नहीं तो पहले they are putting in schedule 2 entry 5E, no, agreeing to do or not to do something.
schedule 2 अलग ही बात है. मैं बोल रहा हूँ 7(1)(a) में. 7(1)(a) में only agreeing के ऊपर टैक्स है. Bringing the agreement to उसके लिए भी अलग लगेगा ना चार्जिंग प्रोविजन में. Bringing that agreement to an end if you want to tax it.
Like, yeah, of course, वो लगेगा.
The schedule 2(5)(e) also says agreeing. It doesn't say not agreeing or bringing the agreement to an end. Anyway, the basic common sense question is that can cancellation be said to be supplied to anyone? Does anyone want cancellation?
I think there are 2-3 raise of hand. I think we should allow them once to speak.
Yeah. Sir, I will add to this point only.
Siddhanji. Yeah.
When we were talking about whether cancellation amounts to an independent supply or not, if we go through a decision of lemon tree premier by the CSTAT Tribunal Delhi, Justice Dilip Gupta very beautifully says, now in that case what happened was, so suppose you book a hotel room and then in case of no show, the amount is forfeited, the part amount is forfeited. Now, that entity, Lemon Tree Premier, deposited service tax on abated rate, what was there on hotel services. But department, on the other hand, saying that it is a cancellation income, they tax it as agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act at 15%. Now, this matter reaches tribunal. And the Justice Dilip Gupta says that there is a fine distinction between consideration for a contract and condition to a contract. The tax, the levy is on consideration for a contract and not on the condition to a contract. For what purpose the agreement was entered into? It was entered into for the customer approached the hotel for obtaining the accommodation service for which a consideration was agreed for. Now, when there is no show, the service itself has not been provided. So you cannot say that it has changed the character has altered merely for the reason of that forfeiture. So in that case, the demand of 15% was set aside, that you cannot say that it is a separate provision of service by virtue of forfeiture, because for this no agreement was entered into. This was a condition in the contract that in case of no show, this amount will be forfeited. So after that decision, there are a series of judgments by CSTAT Tribunal Delhi, all by Justice Dilip Gupta, wherein he says that in case you have to see what was the agreement entered into for, and only that, and what amount in lieu was agreed is only the consideration. Apart from that, there are n number of conditions in a contract for which the damages can be ascribed to, but they cannot be treated as consideration for a contract. So there cannot be any service tax on that portion. So we can take a view from this, these I mean कि condition पे हम tax नहीं लगा सकते हैं.
Siddhanji, this is the basic premise on which the circular is issued.
Yes, absolutely.
Lemon trees was the basic premise on which we had given the representations, on which the basically a lot of trade bodies have given the representation, and for the LDs especially. And that is the premise on which this entire circular is issued, that there has to be a distinction between consideration and compensation. As you have said, condition or condition to a contract or compensation. But in the circular again, they have diverted it.
Yes, they have created an
They have
ambiguity.
said that,
Rajeshji, you want to speak? Please, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, in my view also, this circular is circular is not in line, and one way they are taking the LDH not taxable, and here this hotel industry is taxable. They should they themselves deviating their statements, and in a nutshell, this is also not taxable in my opinion.
I think we should now move on. We can't discuss cancellation for 1 hour.
Yes. So now
6 o'clock.
So Ishanji, you will Arunji share the screen.
Yeah, I'm just sharing. So we have taken some the other, I think, agreement that is done. Okay. And Nishanji, your final, yeah. Boli Nishanji.
No, have we started discussing 71AA?
No, we have not gone to 71AA.
Okay, I'll discuss it then.
So with respect to cancellation, there are problems in as much. For example, even outside India, there is a judgment in Australia which says that airline cancellation, that is consideration, not compensation. I don't know whether we've discussed consideration or not. We've directly taken supply without looking at the definition.
No. We'll go to consideration now.
Yeah. So that they say, because there, with respect to airline, it is said what the airline really gives you is the right to the services. The right itself is supplied. Correct?
Right.
This is what the Australian court said. And with respect to hotels, it is said that what is supplied is there is no supply at all before the actual accommodation starts. ये थोड़ा conflict है. I mean, if you read that Qantas Airways, I don't know why with respect to airlines you can say that the very right to avail the service itself is a supply. ऐसे करके वो है ऑस्ट्रेलिया में judgment. But let's see what Indian courts will say.
Okay.
Ishan, this definition is an inclusive definition. So whatever this 7.1 supply includes. So when I say it is an inclusive definition, whatever is given, it is only example.
Whether the supply is a simple question.
No, agreed. But supply includes. So whatever the situation they have listed in this section, it is only examples. It can be much more than that. It is much wider.
What is it? Therefore, what is it? That is the question.
So in my view, cancellation can be termed as a supply.
Supply of what? What is the service?
You are cancelling your right to book a room, or you are cancelling your air ticket.
Is it a service to cancel?
So I think in the interest of time, we'll go with both the views, like both the views that have been given by the house.
नितिन भाई, आपको मैंने रिटेनर आपका और मेरा रिटेनर का अग्रीमेंट है. You are to give advice to me. I give you supply I give you a service by taking away your retainership agreement. Chalo, let's proceed.
Okay. So now going forward from here, I think Nishanji, I think now we'll go to Ramandeep जी, इसके बाद हम लोग consideration discuss करते हैं. 1AA में जाते पहले.
Yes.
Nishanji, you wanted to discuss something about 1AA?
Yes,
Brief
I wanted.
everyone, don't go on and on because आपके पास time तो limited है.
हाँ नहीं, इसके बाद करते हैं.
Whenever we discuss 71AA, the only challenge what I find is whether an activity between a partner and a firm would be covered under 71AA, where we say that the activities or transactions by a person other than an individual to its member or constituents, or vice versa, for cash, deferred, or other valuable consideration.
Yeah.
And it further goes to say that nothing in the law would be, or judgment or any other law shall be deemed, and that shall be considered as two separate persons at all times. So where do we stop? I mean, whether, say, for example, a working partner making all its efforts to ensure that the firm works and there is a profit or remuneration is being given, whether that would also be covered under 71AA.
What is the meaning of activities? I have not yet understood. Everywhere they say activities.
Correct.
मैं dance करूँ.
Series of events.
Me dancing on my own, is it an activity under 71A?
It's very
should be for a consideration is the bottom line, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
All activities, all transaction.
Partner to other partner will not be covered, I think, because
a partner to a firm.
See, partner to a firm is also because it says activities or transactions by a person other than individual.
Correct.
Individual to individual or individual to firm is out.
Correct.
It says firm to individual.
Ishan, to just add, it says or vice versa also.
Right. Or
by a person other than individual to members or constituents.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. Yeah.
Members or constituents to firm. अच्छा.
Yes. Or vice versa.
Both are covered.
Individuals.
Dividend भी आ जाएगा क्या इसमें?
So when we say that, so I read in a firm where I say that the activities or transactions by a person other than individual to its members or constituents or vice versa. That means individual to the an individual to its parent constitution. That being a firm or an AOP.
Blame Justice Nariman for this. उनका वो छोटा मोटा जो क्लब का रेवेन्यू था ले अभी ये पूरा लेके आए उसमें.
So that's what I was going to say. These are mainly for the club, revenue to be.
It can even take in companies. It can take in partnership firms, trusts. Everything can come now.
Wherever there is a service.
Where does it say only this one? But then
what's your specific question?
In UP specifically, I have seen in Agra, they are issuing notices on this point. What specifically Nishan Bhai is saying? A partner withdrawing more than 20 lakhs from a firm, they are saying you are liable to get registered in the GST.
1 minute. But where is the question of it is being a supply? It is appropriation of a profit.
Yeah.
As a salary or something.
Appropriation of profit, it is a transaction of money.
Sir, as a salary, if it is withdrawing, then that salary is also taxable under the business income of that partner.
No.
It is not.
See,
Nitin sir, just to clarify, say for example, a chartered accountant firm. Actually, the audit is done by a chartered accountant. He signs it.
Right.
So is he providing services to the chartered accountant firm, and the chartered accountant firm is actually providing services to the
If me and Nitin Bhai, both of us form a partnership to execute some work, whatever, both of us working together में service element का है, because ultimately again you go back to 366(12)(a). See, this 71AA may look very wide, like a dragon. पर वो ड्रैगन के गले में पट्टा डाला है 366(12)(a), read with 246(a). So there has to be a supply of service. अभी supply अपने को समझ में नहीं आता क्या है. Service तो आता है, Me and Nitin working together to execute some work. Are we giving service to each other?
That's where the whole question is.
There is an old judgment of this one, Naveen Chandra Mafatlal and Gannon Dunkerley, which says that if there are words in the constitution which cannot, which don't have a legal meaning, then you look at the meaning which ordinary people understand. Service में will an ordinary man say that two partners are giving service to each other? अपने लिए काम कर रहे हैं भाई.
Clubs का क्या था?
But the question is whether the partners are giving service to the partnership firm, which is a distinct entity.
And where there is a deeming provision.
See, that is the problem. We get confused somewhere between this firm, partners, because the definition of person is there. The real question I would again ask, you don't go into कौन किसको क्या कर रहा है. You ask yourself, what is the service which is being provided? एक साथ काम करना सर्विस है क्या? और फर्म को बोलो चलो पार्टनर टू फर्म क्या सर्विस दे रहे हैं अपन फर्म को? Either मैं पार्टनर को सर्विस दे सकता हूँ, नहीं तो फर्म को दे सकता हूँ, दोनों को तो नहीं दे सकता.
No, what we are looking at,
को क्या सर्विस दे रहे हैं अपन?
Sir, what we are looking at currently is that whether it is in the form, whether it forms supply. Since the tax is on supply, they have specifically.
That is the problem, no, Nishan. The word supply, it's very difficult to understand because this word supply can never be used in such contexts. Clubs or associations का अलग था, उसमें क्या था कि forever, whenever you see any sales tax judgment also on the issue of whether sales tax can be levied, instead of using the word sale, they used to use the word supply. वहाँ पे थोड़ा बहुत समझ आता है, but between partners, it is really very difficult to understand what supply means. So instead of going into that esoteric term called supply, let us start with a very simple question. Supply, assuming there is a supply, question is what is whether the supply is a service. What is the service element? Goods तो नहीं हो सकता, तो service क्या है?
The partner,
why are we restricting ourselves to say that a supply needs to be good on services? If that was the case, then it would have been 71A itself. Why there was a need to introduce 71AA? Because if supply includes all forms of goods or services, there was no requirement to introduce 71AA separately. There was a need that the authorities or the lawmakers thought that this was not covered in 71AA. Why are we thinking that everything should be a goods or services only? There may be an activity for a consideration.
Any activity or any
Constitution says that.
No, but then
A में दुनिया भर लिख दे जो भी लिखना है.
Then do we think
थप्पड़ मारा वो भी लिख दे वहाँ पे supply है, लेकिन वो
correct? Then Ishan, then whether I can still challenge to say that if there is no supply, because there should be goods or services, and they have not included this activity being as a service.
The problem with clubs and association, वो जो mutuality was a very legal concept. वो एक अलग बात है. In real terms, if you ask me, between two partners, you still have to answer this question. What is the service? Working together, whether is it a service by one to another?
Whether the service is being provided by the partner to its firm.
It is not, Nishant. It is only to discharge.
आदमी तो फॉर्म है.
नहीं,
नितिन का फॉर्म होगा या नहीं, मैं नितिन को ही दे रहा हूँ, नितिन मेरे को दे रहा है.
नहीं, it's not between inter se. I'm saying from the individual to the partnership.
No.
बोलो फॉर्म को क्या दिया आपने सर्विस?
नहीं, that is where the transaction is. It says you don't need to classify. It will be deemed to be a supply.
Nishan, you are basically saying कि सर्विस बिर्विस कुछ देखने का ही नहीं.
हाँ.
पार्टनर है, कैश फ्लो हो रहा है, खत्म हो गया.
Correct, because it says supply includes. That means this is deemed to be a consideration.
Not a tax on flow of cash. This is not a tax on income or profits or earnings from the firm. This is a tax on supply of service. So where is the service?
Otherwise, it could be a turnover transaction tax.
Yeah.
No. Why am I saying this? Where I am coming from? Because the supply is an inclusive definition.
One minute, Nishan.
Yes.
See, when basically what is the constituent document of a LLP or a firm? It is a partnership deed.
Yes.
Which clearly provides that couple of people come together to do a common business.
Yes.
And for which whatever the profit earnings are there, they distribute as a profit sharing ratio.
Yes.
And even a loss, they take care.
Correct.
So whatever the formats you take it, whether you take it as a salary or you take it as a share of a profit, it is a transaction of money. It cannot be included in supply under any circumstances.
Sir, so was the club.
Yes.
So was the club. They didn't refer this as club. They didn't refer this as club. That was also transaction in money, where actually I was actually contributing my contribution to the club, and the only challenge was this is not restricted to a club.
No. See, the club is a completely different game. We are talking with reference to this. And
Yes,
we
sir.
are trying to import the income tax concept into GST. Please don't import such concepts.
Sir, Naveen sir says firm and partner are one and the same. Appreciate, sir. The only challenge what I feel
Naveen
is,
sir, you call upon him to speak. No, I didn't know he was there. Naveen sir, you can unmute and speak.
Yes.
Where is he?
sir, the only challenge I have is, and if this is to be settled, whether it would change in the case of LLP, where LLP is a separate person and individuals are separate persons.
LLP is considered as a firm only.
No, sir. No, sir. I mean, where GST is a separate, I mean, they have specifically said, and if you read explanations, they say that they shall be deemed to be two separate persons.
In fact, I have read one income tax judgment also where the same thing had happened. Person ke definition mein form dala tha, and the Supreme Court, I think it was some Radhakrishna or something, Supreme Court said that is only for the purpose of assessment. It does not undo the general law that the firm and the partner are in fact one and the same.
Yes, so, I mean, in such circumstances, whether an LLP, a remuneration given to a person, whether that would attract, say for example, a share of profit is for investment.
Anyone else who wants to contribute?
Tarun sir, please go ahead.
Friends, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're.
The point here is I am going with Patkar sir. The point is service is required, because when you're defining this AA clause, it's basically expanding the meaning of supply. But when charging the same, it requires section 9, which requires there must be goods and services. So coming to this activities or transactions, definitely they are bringing them as a definition of supply. But whether this same thing is also service, we again have to see whether there is a service element in them or not. Basically, everything is regarding this association of person, where income tax cases have been come over these association person and the individuals are one and the same thing, even if apparently they are two. So to bring out that into tax, they bring this particular explanation and this AA. But bringing to partnership and partner appears to be there is no service element in that. Not only this CA partnership form, even coming to any commercial partnership, when there is a partners are jointly taking remuneration or also profit sharing, and the business is a trading or manufacturing or something else. So in that case also, both partners are whatever they're getting, whether it's a salary or not, that is not a kind of a service to the partnership. Definitely, the director's remuneration and director's sitting fees are coming into a different way into service tax taxation. So bringing into tax is something else, but jurisprudence, I think something differently we have to look into.
And in fact, what is the consideration? No one has still said what is the service element and what is the consideration for that.
Sir, we'll check that in definition of consideration. I'll discuss that when it comes to consideration definition.
Anything else?
Yes, Samir sir, go ahead. Sameer ji, you want to say? Please go ahead.
Yes. Just to add very, very briefly, I joined the discussion very, very late, maybe at the fag end. All I want to say is that if you want references, then under the service tax regime, there is the judgment of Cadila Labs, wherein a partner was paid remuneration.
Similarly, in Bombay High Court, there was a demand raised against an EY partner, which later on, when it went to the High Court, at that point of time, the Mumbai Commissionerate actually filed an affidavit wherein they said that there is no service being rendered by a partner. In fact, they said that a partner, whether receiving share of profits or receiving remuneration, fixed or otherwise, in both the cases, there is no service being rendered, and that's why they have withdrawn the particular show cause notice on a part issue that service tax will be payable on remuneration. Okay. Apart from that, you have under the negative list regime, CSTAT judgment in case of Gautam Bhattacharya, who also was a partner of ENY, just like the earlier fellow. I am not able to recollect the name of the Bombay High Court judgment. I will post it on the group in some time. Just give me a few minutes. But coming to the main topic which we are discussing, that whether or not a partner is rendering service, number one. Number two, whether the share of profit and the remuneration which is paid to the partner, whether that constitutes a consideration or not. Then on both those issues, considering all the judgments which have been rendered under the income tax and what has been deliberated in the Ahmedabad CSTAT, in the case of Cadillac, what has been deliberated in Bangalore CSTAT in the case of Gautam Bhattacharya, both of them have accepted the proposition under income tax law. And they have said that, number one, the partners are not rendering service to the firm or to the other partners. They are all working for themselves. It is one for all for one. Number two, the remuneration that they receive is not really a remuneration. It is only on account of the quirk of the income tax law that it is put in the category of remuneration. It is only a share of profit. And a share of profit does not partake the character of consideration for the purpose of levy of service tax, and the same principle should also extend into GST. I can also share that during the initial phase of implementation in the FAQs, there is one FAQ which specifically answers that share of profit to a partner is not liable to GST. But I'll try and find that particular image. I'll share it also.
But Sameerji, as Nishanji was pointing out, that all the service tax judgments cannot be applied on the basis that 71AA was not present. And even this FAQ which you have mentioned in a very initial time.
That, no, whether there is a service at the end of the day.
It is not a service because the manner is
71A को बहुत बड़ा बना रहे हो. It has to be put, that 71AA has to be put in its place, which is it has to be restricted by the words of 246A read with 366(12)A. There has to be a service. It may not say, see, 71AA just says activities or transaction. It doesn't use the word service. But this is not an activity or a transaction tax. This has to be a tax on service, correct? So that inflation comes from 246.
One more point to be added. One more point to be added. If you look at the definition of
just 1 minute, Samir bhai.
Yes, yes. Yes, please.
Consideration वाला restriction तो उसके अंदर ही लिखा है. For cash, deferred payment or valuable consideration is a well-known concept in contract law. यार, you ask a contract lawyer, you tell him is the share of profits consideration. हंसेगा वो, बोलेगा what is this share of profits is being called consideration. Yes, Samir bhai. Sorry, I tend to get carried away with my own voice.
Yeah, Nishanji.
No, the only challenge what I have is, see, we refer to Partnership Act, we refer to all judgments. The problem is the explanation. It says it is being hereby clarified that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force or any judgment.
It doesn't say anything contained in...
This is just to negate Calcutta Club judgment.
But was it? I mean, see, for the time being, we should understand that this goes beyond Calcutta Club.
It doesn't say notwithstanding anything contained in Constitution.
If I have to play the devil's advocate, I'll just say that recently we've got a show cause notice wherein it is said what is the definition of services.
Anything
other than goods.
Nishan,
Going by that,
Nishan, this doesn't say anything, notwithstanding anything contained in Constitution of India.
Yeah, I agree, but there is no definition of service. If this is being treated as service,
So therefore,
there
I
are-
said, no, you read that Naveen Chandra Mapatlal and this Gannon Dunkerley, it has to have its ordinary natural meaning. Can the two partners working together, can they be called to be serving each other?
sir, so be the club where all people come together. The only challenge
क्लब परत अडकली आहे क्लबच्या पुढे जा आता
माझं एकच म्हणणं आहे that
No,
if
no,
it
no.
applies to
English,
club,
English.
if it applies to club,
you're wrong.
it applies to
I'm not
partnership
saying
firm.
you're wrong, but the thing is, you are saying because they did this to the club, they have to do it to everyone else. It
No,
may
no.
be
What
wrong
Nishanji is
even
trying to
with
say, no, no.
the
Nishanji is
club.
going on a deeper. Nishanji is going on a deeper aspect. He's saying if principle of mutuality can be lifted for the clubs, it can also be lifted for other organizations. That's what he's trying.
Yes.
What he's trying
There
to
is
say.
the service. Even in clubs, there is the service element. You can ask it. Who has told you not to ask yourself these questions? You are just assuming because 7(1)(a) is there. Even with respect to clubs, it is constitutional and not unconstitutional. Why assume all these things? Anyways, we'll now proceed. Or kuch
Yes.
hai isme?
Yes.
But I think,
Just
yeah,
one
I think
point-
Nishanji, this is
one
a
point.
wonderful food for thought, Matlab, that we can take.
One point I wanted to add, Nishan.
Yes, Samir.
One point I wanted to add. While we are debating clause AA, I just wanted to put it across that clause AA is specifically applicable in case of a AOP. Okay.
Correct.
And what we are debating about, again, I'm apologizing because I've joined the conversation a little late. What we are debating is that of a partnership firm. Now, if I look at the definition of a person under the GST Act, a firm has been put up in a different category and an AOP has been put up in a different category.
Yes.
Now, if you say I'm a firm, can you then say I'm also an AOP? Aren't they supposed to be watertight compartments? Number one. Under income tax, there is a proposition which says that if the partnership deed is not present or if the partnership deed is not registered, then it is going to be an AOP. But such a proposition is not there in GST. So how are we going from the definition of person to clause AA to say that a partnership firm will also constitute an AOP?
There is no reference of AOP in 7(1)AA. It says to its members or constituents.
Other than individual.
Members are different than partners. No, partners have a very specific meaning.
No, there is no reference of partners in the entire.
There is a firm, right? Definition of a firm. No, can you ignore that definition?
I am told in international tax in DTA, people build millions of dollars of practice on just one clause of the DTA. मुझे लगता है यहाँ पे यही शुरू होगा 7(1)(a) पे लोग स्पेशलाइज करके उसी का अलग से कंसल्टेंसी शुरू कर देंगे. Anyways, let's move on. Good point.
Anup, Ishan and Ramandeep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Adding one more extension to this.
Yes.
It
He
is.
doesn't want us to move on only.
No. Hold on. If there is a dissolution of a firm, and if the goods are taken over by the partners,
Yes.
will it trigger?
Where is the service? Dissolve kiya, service kiya.
I'm asking the question. I'm putting the food for thought.
But there is a specific provision on that, no? Disposal.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have schedule
That
1.
when schedule 1 or 2 comes, no.
Schedule
I
1
have a problem with that also. I say deemed supply, whether that can happen or not. So let us reserve this particular problem whenever the disposal wala clause comes.
Schedule का जब discussion.
Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 is separately discussed.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I can understand goods. Goods, you know, ठीक है एक बार सर्विस तो क्या हो सकता है? I am also wondering what. अच्छा, there is one more question I had. Me and Nitin are working together to give consultancy to Samir Bhai. We are providing services to Samir Bhai. Correct? But can we also simultaneously be said to be giving service? Can the same service be provided to two different recipients? That is what it boils down to, no? हम लोग एक साथ काम करके we are producing an output supply which is recipient
which tax is
Samir Bhai.
paid.
Then for the very same service you are saying one more recipient is there, which is me and Nitin Bhai. वो कैसे हो सकता है? How can there be two recipients to one supply?
No. I mean,
Samir Bhai and Nitin Bhai are also an AOP. एक दूसरे को दे रहे हैं. Anyways, let's proceed.
let's move.
Right. So let us go ahead to subsection 2. We wanted to discuss one issue relating to subsection 2 also. And the subsection 2 says that notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, and A is again relating to activities or transactions specified in schedule 3, which is not subject topic of today's discussion. Coming back to point 2b, it says that such activities or transaction undertaken by the central government, state government, or local authority in which they are engaged as a public authority, as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. And so we wanted to discuss thoroughly on this point, that we are seeing that these days on ROC fees, there are too many notices have been issued saying that it's a supply of services, and that is and the consideration is even higher than 5,000 rupees. Since there has been no exemption, nothing has been notified under this 7.2b. That is why this ROC services has been taxable under this. Now that earlier in the service tax, we used to take the shelter that it is a statutory function. Now in the GST era, the business has been defined in such a very broader way that it tend to cover those functions also. And in such case, if there is nothing notified in 2b, can we say that ROC expenses will be taxable under this 7.2b as a public authorities? And if it is so, then tomorrow, whenever a client, while paying GST late fees also for not filing of return or not filing of GST or 9 and paying lakhs of rupees in tax, he has to pay RCM on that late fees also, saying that I am receiving certain services from the government and I am required to pay uh, tax GST on that also. So the forum is open. Let us discuss this aspect thoroughly. Whether this ROC expenses, this late fees expenses, or any other similar type of services. One could be RTO services also. This road transport and fitness certificates services. Are these all covered under this 2A, 2B, or covered in the definition of business? Will they be taxable if there is no specific exemption or notification mentioned in 2B? If anybody wants to start in, chip in.
So, I would like to start the discussion. So, see, the basic question which is there is whether it is a business at all. Because these are statutory authorities. If, let's say, we take an example of ROC. So, ROC is not an entity which is there to do business. It is a statutory body created under Government of India, who is discharging their statutory function of giving filing services and database services and etc. to the companies. So it is by any stretch of imagination, it cannot be covered under service, covered under the term business. So if it is not business, then obviously all the other taxability fails.
Moichi, I would like to bring one point here, that in 17 in subsection 2, section 217 business, in point number I, it says that any activity or transaction undertaken by central, state, or local authority in which they are engaged as a public authority.
Why is Omkar Gadge so shant today? Where is Omkar?
No, he's dropping message in the chat box. Yeah, Mohiji.
Call upon him no to participate.
Just give me a minute. I'll also open section 217.
So, just to add to this, I just want to point out one more transaction. If you look at, the activity of issuance of PAN and the UDAI and all of that. Okay. In case of PAN, the entire activity is being done by NSDL and by UTI, which is not the government. And they are actually charging service tax for it. Those actually, the power to allocate PAN is with the government. But these people are doing it. Those people are actually rendering the service to the government. But they are collecting the tax, the service tax and GST from you.
But that's understood, sir, because they are in fact even charging in that bill and we are paying it. But
no, the question is it a statutory activity or is it not a statutory activity? If it is a statutory activity, they are not authorized to collect it. That is the first question.
Yeah, similarly for pollution control certificates also. Even for pollution control certificates,
Samir bhai, are they not acting as a facilitators?
they are not government, sir. They are
not. Do you have an option of applying for a PAN? Does the government have an option of granting it to you or not granting it to you? It is under the law, no? And if they are facilitators, they are facilitating to whom?
They are facilitating to the government as well as the person who is applying for.
No. Your obligation is there. You have to be allotted by the government. Government is not doing it and giving it to somebody else. You take your GST late fees.
Correct.
Is GST late fees a service or not? You look at SEBI transaction turnover fees. They have actually gone to the Delhi High Court and said it is not a tax. We are rendering a service.
No.
Why are they calling it a fee? Why are they calling it a fee and not a tax? You have to look at fee. You have to look at the nomenclature also.
No, Samitji, we are actually going on the same ground for pollution control certificates also. We are also going to move the High Court on the same ground only. That pollution control is an obligation which is to be carried out by the government. They have given it to the implementing agencies. The agencies are collecting the money and they are collecting the GST also. So in our view, on the pollution control fees also, no GST should be collected. On the similar ground that you have shared right now.
Arup, there is an old line of judgments.
Yes.
So this question used to keep coming up. A tax, there are various tax entries in the 7th schedule of Constitution. Excise is there, income tax is there, sales tax is there.
Right.
Then under each of the list, union state list, there is a separate entry for fees.
Yes.
And this question used to keep coming up whether a particular levy is a fee or a tax. Now for fee, the sine qua non which was laid down by Supreme Court early on was a fee has to have a quid pro quo with a service. So that entire line of judgments you will find the Supreme Court also grappling with this question whether in a particular case any service is provided first by the government and second whether there is a quid pro quo, etc., etc. Correct?
Right.
Now this Corporation of Calcutta versus that Liberty Cinema, that judgment, that's very interesting. There's just like this pollution control, some license fee was in issue to run the cinema, etc.
Yes.
And the question was whether I think it was the state of, it was a corporation which had derived powers from the state legislation to levy that tax. They were saying it's a tax. Supreme Court said it certainly is not a tax because it doesn't fall within any of the taxing entries, etc. Sorry. This is how it went. The question was whether it is a fee or a tax. Now the distinguishing marker was in a tax, service is not required to be shown. In a fee, it has to have a correlation to some service. The Supreme Court asked itself the question, by giving a license, is the corporation providing any service? It's a very interesting answer they said. They said that every man has a right to do business and all these licenses are not facilitators of business, they are restrictions on business. Correct?
Right.
Because in common law, all these licenses are not there. You come up with all these licenses, drugs control, pollution control, to restrict, effectively restrict the business unless you pay something in the nature of a hafta. Hafta nahi bola unhone, par hafta hi hota hai. Statutory hafta. And then the Supreme Court says, can it be a service by anyone to restrict business? And they said, therefore, this is not a service, therefore, this cannot be a fee. And then they struck it down saying that since it's not a fee and there is no enabling power to impose such a tax, off you go. That is the question you have to ask yourself, whether pollution control certificate, it may be in a larger sense in public interest, but we are not concerned with public interest here. The question is, by demanding these certificates, are they restricting businesses or not? इसका उल्टा alcohol में है. Alcohol में the view was that there is no right only to do alcohol business, and therefore the license which is given to you, excise license, etc., that gives you the right for the very first time to do that business. Because the courts don't recognize any fundamental right to do the selling or manufacturing of alcohol.
Right.
But that's not the case. You have a fundamental right to business, and all these licenses, etc., are mere restrictions. Similarly, according to me, ROC fee is also a type ultimately of restriction. No doubt the state is trying to regulate how you function, but while doing regulation, they are not doing you a service. That is point number one. There is another line that Gupta Modern Breweries is also a very interesting case. There the state excise authorities in Jammu and Kashmir had enacted a rule saying that they will come and inspect your factory, and for that they will take some inspection fee. The question again was whether this is a tax or a fee. Then if it is if you want to call it a fee, then the question is whether there is a service or no. Supreme Court said, यार तुम अपने लिए कर रहे हो inspection, थोड़ी ना उसके लिए कर रहे हो. किसको सर्विस दिया तुमने? When you audit or inspect, you are doing it for government, does it for yourself itself, not for the other. And they said therefore no service, and there is no enabling power to levy such a tax out. So that is a very that Indian mica, and there is a line of judgments even on this mining license fees, etc. So anyone who wants to go to the root of this, please read those judgments on tax versus fee.
Nishanji has shared very important, very good judgment of Income Tax Act. I was about to share this view relating to this TDS late fee, where it says that whenever there is an late fee charge for TDS, it is, the courts have held that it is an additional burden, additional privilege has been given to the taxpayer where they can submit their return late, and that is why it's a separate services has been provided. And that is why it is not a kind of a penalty, but it's a late fee charges. If we go by this analogy, that whenever a late, sorry,
which court has said this?
Bombay High Court.
Rashmikant Kundalia.
Seems very convoluted.
This was very burning issue at the time when this TDS various, I think this issues has went to various high courts. And the similar judgments, similar outcomes have came in many of the high courts, saying that this additional, this late processing, if you really want to avoid it, file your return on timely, and you will not be charged any late fees. But if they are charging something extra after if you are filing late, then it's a separate services itself that they are processing your return, and that is why it will be it is not penalty, it will be fees for a specific services. Yes, Samitji, you want to say something?
So now, Samit, who is saying?
Samit,
I just want to add 2 points. Maybe relevant, may not be relevant. Just to keep in mind. Many people don't realize this, but there are several situations where the fee amount actually exceeds the tax amount, which is permitted to be collected under the law. Number one. Number two, there have been several instances, I have only read in the paper, I don't know for sure, that the fee amount doesn't get added into the consolidated fund of India. That part I don't know, because I remember in one or two cases when the issue of fee versus tax was being debated, at that point of time, the question that was being asked is that does this ultimately flow into the consolidated fund of India or not? If it doesn't go into the consolidated fund of India, you may really not be able to fight to say that this is a tax. This is just something that I understand how the debate has gone on this issue. I am not very sure where it is concluded.
Consolidated fund argument at one point of time used to be made, but I think that has now gone. The real question always remains is whether it's a quid pro quo, there is any service. That is what. For ROC fee, let us test on that basis whether an ROC fee, any service is being given by the government to us or no.
No, so the reason why I pointed out this particular fee part exceeding the tax is because that was one of the arguments which was taken in Rashmikant Kundalia, where they said this is an illegal levy. Because it went down. In fact, Rashmikant Kundalia was a very, very good case, not properly argued. It actually killed the goose for a lot of people. The whole point was, first of all, do you have the power to levy such a fee? And secondly was whether you can exceed. It is a matter of fact that after this particular judgment came, what the government has very, very subtly done is that it has restricted the amount of fee to not exceed the amount of tax. We have not seen such a day in GST. I'm hoping it will come.
So now let us ask ourselves the question that all these compliances under Service Tax, Companies Act, are they a service to us as a business?
Ishan, may I add something?
Yeah, Atish, fully.
See, ROC, I mean, broadly we may say ROC charges, but I think one can get into a little detail. For example, I can do a search of another company for which I pay ROC charges. I can search the documents of some other competitor or some other company. Now, I think in this case, there is clearly a quid pro quo because I'm paying the fee to get certain access to certain other documents. Here, it may be difficult to argue that this is in the nature of tax or this is not a fee. But when I'm registering a new company and paying the registration charges, I don't know what the stand is. So the point I'm trying to drive is within ROC fees, there may be instances where quid pro quo may be there. And those cases will probably clearly fall into service. And ambiguity will remain in other cases where it is more of a statutory function. So that is what I wanted to just put across.
Okay, anyone else has anything to say on this? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Sir, with respect
one last point that I wanted to raise.
One minute, Samir bhai. Let's.
Yes, sir.
Sir, with respect to registration, as Atish sir was pointing out, there is a specific exemption is available in interest number 47, sir. Registration under any law for the timing in force, they grant an exemption. In fact, we are fighting a different case here wherein renewal, whether it is amounting to registration, we are fighting on that ground, wherein even the registration renewal with respect to factories renewal charges, with respect to other renewal charges, they are charging a GST. Department here, they are taking renewal is not actually a registration. We are fighting that in this round, saying that no, renewal is also a registration. Because the moment you don't give it to me, it's not. So can that be incorporated for ROC registration charges also? In my view, yes. I'll leave the rest to the forum, sir.
They are saying renewal is registration. I have received an order saying that exemption is there. No. Some of the registration charges, they are saying renewal is not registration.
Correct. Exactly. That's what he's saying. That's what Siddharamaja is saying.
Arupji, may I add something?
Yeah, please.
There is a Supreme Court judgment in case of Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority, where Supreme Court has tried to analyze the term fees or other consideration, because the word used therein with section 215 for fees, assess or other consideration. And Supreme Court has tried to analyze these terms independent of what is written in the income tax law. So that's why I am taking this decision. What Supreme Court has to say in that judgment is that when you call something a fees or other consideration, that there has to be a dominant objective of earning profit. So when we are talking about ROC fees or other fees that are being charged by different public authorities, whether the dominant intention is to earn profit. So just saying that some kind of service is being rendered or this service is being rendered for a consideration. So there is a distinction between two. So of course, regarding the late fees, maybe you can say that some kind of service is being provided by government to us, but whether this service is for a consideration, because for something to fall under the mischief of consideration, there has to be some kind of dominant intention. I'm just giving a perspective from that Supreme Court judgment.
Okay. But yeah, here the dominant intention, as Yatish was saying.
The observations are given in para 282 at page 83 in this judgment. Maybe one can draw some conclusions.
So that's what Yatish was precisely saying, that it will depend on the nature of activity or transaction that I'm utilizing from the ROC. So if I'm taking a certified copy of the public document, then maybe that is a quid pro quo. So there is a service. But if I am filing my ROC documents, AOC 4 and NGT 7, paying filing fees, along with the late fees for filing, maybe there is no element of service in that. That's what we are trying to argue. Yes, I mean,
there is another Supreme Court judgment in case of, I think, EPFO, where they have said that there is no relation of supplier and the recipient of service when it comes to the some kind of fees being charged by these kind of entities. There has to be relation of supplier of service and recipient of service, which is absent in such kind of transactions. EPFO.
there has to be a relation. Okay. Yeah.
So the limited point that I just wanted to highlight on the issue whether or not these regulatory authorities like MCA, etc., are actually rendering a service or not. So there is one matter in the case of Security Exchange Board of India, which is pending and sub judice before the Delhi High Court. If my memory is right, it is pertaining to the negative list implementation somewhere in 2012. And it is after that RBI got a retrospective benefit, SEBI got a prospective benefit, wherein they were given a specific exemption. Those kind of exemptions I have not seen very, very specifically in the GST legislation. But if you look at the manner in which the Service Tax Department has gone behind SEBI and even RBI at that point of time, they were very, very strong enough to say that the activity being carried on by both these authorities was actually a service. And whatever consideration that they were charging, be it fee, be it any other name, is actually taxable under the law. So considering that GST is actually wider, considering that sovereign function and sovereign activity is specifically defined under GST, unless there is a specific exemption, which I have not really studied to know, my view would be that what activity they are carrying on is definitely a chargeable activity.
Anything else to be said on this, or we move on?
Yeah. So I think as we have around 20 minutes left, so now we'll move on to some small case studies. Because अगर GST का बात हो रहा है तो थोड़ा बहुत इधर-उधर मतलब technical faults and all ये discuss नहीं होगा तो नहीं होगा.
I think Anup, don't get into case studies.
No, this is related to supply only. These are related to supply, and this is what we are facing as in now. So this we wanted to just quickly discuss in maybe 2 to 3 minutes. So issue is that the invoice was raised. ये हो रहा है, काफी हो रहा है. The issue is that invoice was raised. Then the contractor said that revise the invoice. They have revised the invoice. Again uploaded the invoice in April. So essentially the invoice was uploaded twice. Now the department is alleging that since you have shown it in GST year 1 twice, so you have to pay tax in both the years. So whether, if you go by the definition of supply, one important element is a part of consideration. So here, without having a consideration received for the second supply, whether this can be at all considered to be a supply.
So what does section 9.1 say? 9.1 says there shall be levied a tax on all intrastate supplies. It doesn't say there shall be levied a tax on all the transactions in GSTR 1.
Yeah, but the precise problem is that many are facing is this.
Charging provision is on supply or what you are writing in your GSTR 1.
Exactly.
What you have written in your GSTR 1 is at best evidence, nothing more. It may be an admission, but under Evidence Act, even admissions can be explained. Mistakes in admissions are liable to be ignored.
And to that extent, I think even that explanation to section 7012, deemed explanation which they gave that in case any liability.
Circular 7512, they have to still hear you.
Oh, not exactly a circular, but a press release sort of.
Yeah. नहीं मोहित जी आप क्या बोल रहे about 7812?
मोहित जी please.
Exactly on principle, I agree with Ishan bhai that the charging provision is on supply. So there is supply with whether it is declared in GSTR 1, whether it is paid in 3B, it is irrelevant. If it is not a supply, tax cannot be paid. So even to that extent, that section 7512 explanation, which says that whatever is paid in GSTR 1, recovery can be directly initiated.
Yes, that is what the challenge is. We are facing mainly. All the taxpayers are facing. That they are saying that you have already reported it twice, but can a supply be constituted without consideration? So that is one of the important parts here. Because I am receiving the consideration only once.
And so there is no
recovery
supply even.
without any charge. That is what 7512 says.
Yes.
Charging provision में बैठे ना बैठे लिख दिया तो recovery होगा.
Arup sir, how are we telling that it is reported twice? We have already amended the earlier invoice to 0 value.
Right.
So
no, but they are saying that
invoice value is 0 or let's say 0.01.
Yes.
Whatever it is. So if they want to levy tax on both the as I have reported twice, one value is 0.01. You levy on that 0.01.
नहीं वो ठीक है, but the problem is that they have paid the tax in March.
Yeah, so that was excess payment which is adjusted in June.
या तो बोल रहे उसका आप रिकवरी कर लो और इसका आप पेमेंट कर दो.
वो सर्कुलर है कि आप पहले के रिटर्न की गलतियां नेक्स्ट रिटर्न में रेक्टिफाई कर सकते हो.
I think circular number 26.
Let's not get into all this.
Right. Let's
It's not part of today's session. आप section
Only
7
supply.
और इसके ऊपर बात करो.
Basically, whether here the main crux that we are defending is whether मतलब ये जो बोल रहे हैं कि अप्रैल में हम लोगों ने फिर से सप्लाई किया है without consideration, without getting any consideration, whether it can be said that
7512 में even if there is no supply, just because you write in your GSTR 1, tax comes. That is what you are saying.
Yes.
Such में.
Actually, Arudha, this we have recently defended this case in before Commissioner Appeals only in Gurgaon, where my invoices were reported thrice in GSTR 1. So thrice. So actually, what happened was, so it does not take the same invoice number again and again. There is a validation in GSTR 1.
Yes.
So it was uploaded 1 dash 1 hyphen. Somehow it was uploaded. But again, we only said this thing only that what is supply. Supply is under section 9. Now, what is my supply is what has been certified by my auditor in my balance sheet. Right. If it is above and beyond, you have to tell me that no, it is not your supply. That is your content. You have to prove that my supply is beyond my balance sheet's turnover. Again. So we presented these arguments and somehow they agreed and gave us the favorable order that once it is not a supply, even if it is reported twice or thrice in GSTR 1 and not paid in 3V, then it is not required to be paid.
No, but essentially, 7512 ka explanation for the purposes of this section. Somebody put that on the screen. For the purposes of this section, expression self-assessed tax shall include the tax payable in respect of the details of outward supply. So it doesn't say that the word used is tax payable in respect of details of outward supply. Now your outward supply you may have shown twice. The question is whether there is a tax payable twice. So the word tax payable has to be as per section 7, or section 9.
Yes.
It can't be just as per the GSTR 1. It doesn't say that self-assessed tax shall be whatever you have shown in your this one. No. Tax payable in respect of details of outward supply. So he still has to apply his mind, the officer, to find out whether there is a tax, and that is what the press release says, I think.
Press that they have said after
circular. I thought it was a circular.
After a lot of recoveries being initiated directly without any notice or anything, then they.
Correct, he has to apply anyways. How can the recovery provision travel beyond the charging provision? ये तो मशीनरी भी नहीं है, ये तो मशीनरी के भी आगे निकल गया.
So can we say that an invoice without a supply cannot be taxed?
Sorry, what?
An invoice raised without any supply cannot be taxed under the GST law.
तो मैं day 1 से बोल रहा हूँ.
Correct. So for example,
नहीं तो एडवांस में भी कैसे टैक्स आ सकता है?
So
मेरा कोई गवर्नमेंट में सुनता नहीं है, वो प्रॉब्लम है.
So if I have 100 crore bogus, I mean I made a balance sheet of 100 crores.
Okay.
Showing profit, showing a sale of 100 crores without having any supply. I just prepared a balance sheet saying 100 crores of sale, a profit and loss saying 100. Whether tax can be demanded on me saying that your sale is basically the supply.
What is the
So
intention?
even
There is the evasion, sir. There is
There,
no tax. There is no
there
tax.
you are saying, there you are agreeing in your return that you have made a supply.
No, I don't
So
agree.
first,
I state that this was just prepared for banking purposes. Say, for example.
there is actually a circular on this on which deals with all these fake invoicing, etc. So there also government has itself said that if a person has actually issued an invoice on which there is no underlying supply, then tax is not payable on that invoice.
Only penalty.
Yes.
Only penalty can be levied under 122. That is a separate matter, but tax cannot be levied because there is no supply. And ITC, if fake ITC has been levied, that can be reversed.
But there is no invoice raised.
The basic principle will always be the same unless and until charging section is attracted. GST cannot be levied.
So can a supply be triggered when it comes to search matters? Say your cash has been received to you.
So, see, all these.
If there is no supply, there are no goods. Can the act itself apply?
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Penalty लगाते हैं, लेकिन do they have the power to only come up with penalty? That is one of the matters we are going to file also now. Under 246A read with 366(12). See, penalty is nothing but additional tax for the purpose of. There is no provision in the constitution which allows कि ऐसे penalty भी लगा सकते हो. It is always considered incidental to the main taxing power. लेकिन तुम्हारा taxing power ही नहीं है जिसके इसमें उसमें तुम penalty कैसे लगा सकते हो? अगर goods ही नहीं है and the act itself cannot apply, then effectively that penalty is nothing but a regulatory provision. It has nothing to do with tax, correct? It is meant to discourage certain kinds of conduct, but it is not a taxing matter. It is mere general, a regulatory provision. Then the next question is, if it has nothing to do with tax, how come it has come into a money bill? GST was passed as a money bill. Could it have been passed as a money bill?
Yes.
If there is no tax effect at all.
No, but say for
अभी
example.
मेरा जो आर्ग्यूमेंट है ना, ये 50 साल के बाद कोई अप्रूव करेगा तभी बात करेंगे.
So whether a crore rupees received or are found out in a search proceedings can be taxed.
In GST?
Is it a tax
Under GST.
on? Is it a tax on whatever treasure they find?
Yes.
No, but money cannot be goods or supply, right? They have to prove that there is a supply.
Yeah.
Yes, they have to prove.
इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स पे किसी ने टैक्स लगाया क्या कि उस पे नहीं लगाया? There was no service in that.
No, Nishan ji, आप जो बोल रहे हो ना, that is actually the situation that is being faced in some of the situations wherein when the search is or inspection is happening, if there is a mismatch between the balance sheet, जहाँ पे कि आपने 9C file नहीं किया because of whatever reason, or there is a mismatch between your balance sheet and your returns, the balance amount has been triggered to be a supply only.
No, what happens, sir? What happens to cash in hand?
No, cash in hand. What is important is how has that cash arrived? तो बोगस एक्सपेंस की वजह से कैश आया है या सेल सप्रेस किया इसलिए कैश आया है? अगर सेल सप्रेस किया इसलिए आया है तो टैक्स लगा सकते हैं. लेट्स से कल मैंने बोगस सैलरी दिखा के कैश निकाला है तो उसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं लगा सकते.
Who needs to prove this?
They will have to only prove. They are doing the investigation.
Burden of proof.
तो वही नाटक है पूरा. आईटीसी में डिस्कस करेंगे. बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ इज ऑन दैट.
No, I'm just
Let's move ahead. We have only 10 minutes.
Yes, Ramandeep ji, next.
Sir, वो screen share कर दीजिए.
Oh, sorry, ये one. Yeah. So this we discussed. Maybe now you can quickly go to some other or to
just put the poser आप अभी पूरा ये पढ़ो मत. हाँ ठीक है. As per the contract reimbursed by the man. I thought 2 घंटा काफी होगा. It seems 2 hours is also not. अपने को year long करना पड़ेगा फिर तपस्या.
तब तक अगले डिस्कशन का टाइम हो जाएगा।
तब तक एक्ट अमेंड हो जाएगा।
तो इसमें एक्चुअली एज पर द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट देयर वाज अ reimbursement to be claimed, and I have not claimed the reimbursement. So I have no consideration has flown to me. Now an allegation is raised that आपने किया नहीं किया वो आपका गलती है, but whatever amount you have spent for towards this particular expenses of advertisement, उसके लिए आपको that will be considered to be a supply, and उस पे आपको GST भरना पड़ेगा. And here the assumption is they are not related parties. So what is the view of the house on this?
Your consideration is there. The question is not whether consideration is there or not. So it is as good as आपने bill किया और bad debts हो गए, या आपने bill नहीं किया. It was your choice, but because of that, government should not suffer.
या तो इसमें क्या इसमें वो बिल करना भूल ही गए. They have forgotten to bill only because of some reason. Finance के साथ marketing का there was some gap, so they forgot to get the reimbursement done. So now department is coming after say 3 years and saying that just because it is there in the agreement, whether you have taken the reimbursement or not between unrelated parties, it will be considered as a supply. So what is the view of the house on this?
What is the supply?
The reimbursement.
Advertisement services. Advertisement services are incurred by the distributor.
Given by whom to whom?
The
distributor has incurred advertising expenses. Now, as per the contract, distributor had to get this reimbursed from the manufacturer.
There is this ये जो motor वाले matters है. I remember I had cited that also. VAT में ये बहुत चलता था issue. In service tax also it had come up. These incentives etc. which are given by manufacturers to distributors to reach a certain level of sales.
Yeah,
there is a very good judgment.
Yeah.
There is a very good judgment by Supreme Court which says that that when the manufacturer gives such incentives, it is not for some services which are being provided by the distributor to the manufacturer. I can't recall the 1 minute. If I have, I'll just give it.
Arupji, this question moreover seems to be a question of valuation. I mean, underlying services only, advertisement only. They are just want to add this reimbursement into your valuation part, which is not at all charged, and both of them are unrelated parties.
So no, they are saying that is the main thing. Though they are unrelated, they are saying that this will be considered to be a deemed supply क्योंकि आपके contract में लिखा है. So essentially the question is अगर contract में कुछ लिखा है, and if you don't follow that, and we don't get the consideration, whether that will be considered to be a deemed supply.
Contract is also oral also. I can amend.
No, written. This written. No, there's a contract.
I am saying that both of us orally understood.
There is an actual supply, right?
Both of them, we have revised our terms of condition and we have agreed to it, let us say. And both of us are happy. And actual consideration will be taxed.
If I decide to charge ₹1.
What is the problem?
No, sir, they are unrelated, sir.
They are unrelated.
No, it is unrelated. I charge only ₹1.
Okay.
Then will the equation change? On ₹1 there is no GST.
No, sir. Here the question is that in the contract it is mentioned, no, entire advertising expenses will be reimbursed by the manufacturer.
Great, but I have a supplementary deed.
That is what,
which I change the terms
at the discretion of the distributor.
Don't make it about valuation. Don't make it about valuation. Let us only focus on what is the supply and what is the compensation.
So agar contract mein rahega, whether that will become a deemed supply, that is one of the main things. And why then we have to design our contracts in that way, or while doing our 99C, the contract evaluation also becomes so much important from the point of view of supply. Because here the element is close to 7 crores.
See, so this is the judgment. If anyone wants to write down the judgment.
Yeah, please tell me. Boli.
I put it on the screen. Service discount, it was called. Some trade discount which was given to the distributor was called service discount. And in that they have discussed whether the distributor actually gives any service to the manufacturer or no. It's a very good judgment written by Justice Venkatramaya. This is 1983 two Supreme Court cases, page 108. If you want, I'll just take it where that exact. See this para 6. That there is no real service which is given by this. In fact, he says that this is nothing but incidental to the sale of goods itself. There is no separate service, etc. So that also throws up the question of composite and mixed supply. Anyways, you read this whenever you get the time.
Okay. So I think with this, Ishanji, we should have a quality day today.
अरे you finish लो, जिसको रहना है रह जाए, जिसको जाना है जाए.
Okay.
तपस्या इसी को बोलते हैं.
So then I'll quickly
साल
go.
करनी पड़ती है. But let's not have prolonged discussions.
Achha, then quickly, so that is about the second discussion.
Tarun Agarwal wants to say something.
Yeah, Tarunji, boli.
Tarunji, go ahead.
I just want to add here, legal obligation or it kind of a. Hello.
Yeah,
yes, you're audible. You're audible.
You're audible.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, can it be a principal agent activity and it's a legal obligation on the part of the distributor to execute the activity of this advertisement and charge the cost?
Yeah, that's what they are saying. It's a legal obligation because it is there in the contract. So why it will not be considered as a supply?
No, legal obligation is not in a commercial sense. It is a principal is entrusting a responsibility of the agent. He's a subordinate.
Right.
So it's not an activity to, he's not making a profit. It's a reverse a cost. So
right.
Whatever the cost, that is as an agent, he's acting on behalf of the principal.
Yes.
May not be the exactly definition of the pure agent.
You're saying on a P2A relation. Okay. He's saying it is an obligation so that he has to do the advertising for his own marketing and promotion. So there is no element of service in that. That's what he is trying to say.
But that have to be clear whether this service is actually going to be consumed by the distributor or the company brand. Because there can be two persons receiving the same service.
No.
So basically, it is the objective of the principal to execute at that area, and ultimately the entire sale is also of the principal.
Yeah. Point
so one
taken.
of the view on that.
Yeah. Point.
Arunji, just to add, whether
let
section.
us proceed. I think.
Yes. No issues.
Sorry, but अपने को 9 भी नहीं बजा.
Yes. Appreciate.
नहीं खत्म करने in 5-10 minutes only. So next case study is on 9.5. We'll quickly go through 9.5 first.
अरे 9 में I don't know how these people got rid of this reverse charge.
That they have suspended it.
But can you can repeal an act? Can you simply withdraw the notification which brings the provision into force? ऐसे तो कोई भी कुछ भी गवर्नमेंट रिपील करना शुरू कर दे.
Only beneficially, that's why we are silent.
If I find one person who wants to litigate, I will litigate this also.
No. So on 9.5, the government may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, specify category of services, the tax on interested supplies of which shall be paid by the e-commerce operator. If such services supplied through it, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such eco as if he is a supplier liable for paying the tax in relation to supply of such services. So in this case, what is happening? It's a restaurant which is supplying the services through an app, food delivery app. Now the food delivery app is actually making the supplies, collecting the tax on behalf of the restaurant, and is also supposed to pay the taxes to the government. However, it has come to the notice of the investigating agencies that the food delivery app has failed to pay the tax to the government. So now they are the investigating agencies, they are issuing show cause notice to the restaurants. Okay, that this particular tax was payable by you, but it was the liability of the e-commerce operator. So they have not discharged their liability. So now you have to pay. So whether going by the wordings of section 9(5), whether there is any burden or responsibility on the restaurant, the service provider who is providing services through e-commerce operator, to discharge the tax. Because the last line says, all the provisions of this act shall apply to such e-commerce operator as if he is a supplier liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such services. So if the e-commerce operator is not fulfilling its obligation as per section 9(5), will the obligation lie on the original supplier of the services? What is the view of the house on this?
I think the e-commerce operator, the burden of payment has already been transferred to the e-commerce operator. He has entered into the shoes of the supplier itself. And now just because the recovery is not made from e-commerce
and they have also collected the taxes.
They have collected the tax. You cannot shift back to again on this supplier and saying that no, that this guy is not paid and you will be held responsible. For cases where the recipient has collected tax from the supplier and have not paid, and ITC is disallowed in some cases, there is expressively section, and that is why they can go back to the supplier and say that you have to reverse ITC. There is no similar provision in case of this e-commerce operator, and you cannot say that since the e-commerce operator has not paid, the supplier is liable to pay in this case.
Yeah, even I feel what Ramandeep ji has said is right, because incidence of tax is fixed by the law that cannot be shifted.
Arup ji, may I add something?
Yes, please, sir.
Whether e-commerce operator can be said to be agent of this person, luxury restaurant.
No, as per the contract they have, they say that it's not a principal agent relationship. That is there in the contract.
No. As per the Contract Act, the section 182 of the Contract Act says that the agent either is authorized to do an act or to act in a representative capacity.
Right.
So he is allowed to do two kinds of act. One is to do an act or to act as his representative. So in this case, what he is doing is he's acting in a representative capacity. Okay, so to my mind, he does fall into the definition of agent so far as the section 182 of the Contract Act is concerned. Okay. Now, if we look at section 86 of CGST Act, it says where an agent supplies or receives any taxable goods on behalf of principal, such agent and his principal shall jointly and separately be liable to pay tax payable on such goods under this act.
Okay. So you're bringing from 86 also.
I think move on. Arup, you give your views and move on.
Yeah, I think this is one angle that I need to check. But as far as I believe that since the incidence of tax has been actually put on the e-commerce operator, and I as a restaurant don't have the authority to collect the taxes, so I cannot be held responsible to pay the taxes. And though this is not really for restaurants, this is happening in the hotel industry. I'm sure many of our friends or their clients, they have received the notices by the hotels. So we are challenging on this particular ground that when 9(5) says the e-commerce operator to collect and deposit the tax, and it does not cast an obligation on me, the service provider, so I don't have the authority to collect the tax, so therefore I don't have the liability to pay the tax also.
Impossible.
But whatever you have said as per section 86, so I'll look into that provision also for my better understanding. So I think, Ishanji, I think we should close it here or kya kare?
Sir, 86 does not apply in respect of e-commerce operator.
case study.
हाँ और एक है.
तो खत्म वो करो ना क्या है अभी?
हाँ एक मिनट.
We have reached 74. 70
Ramandeep ji.
आप रखो.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Ramandeep ji, please take over this one. Yeah.
Yes, sir. This is one of the very realistic case which we are facing here. that one entity, which is an Indian private limited entity, has taken such sales promotion or advertisement services. They are importing these services regarding advertisement of online content from Singapore. And A has furtherly provided this services, same services, to an entity who is in Vietnam. And what he does is he has netted off his RCM payment with import of services from the export of services on a bona fide belief that the same has been out to out transaction, and therefore no RCM is applicable for those services which are purchased from outside and directly sold outside the India. So, as we know that in case of import of services, we are required to pay tax on RCM. But what he has done is he has purchased from outside, directly sold to an outside party considering. So he has netted off import and export and paid on net basis. He has paid RCM on net basis. Whether, first of all, whether this is allowed, and if it is allowed, if it is not allowed, can the neutrality save him in the future litigation? Tax neutrality can save him in the future litigation.
Billing has been done, Ramandeep?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How the invoicing has been done?
Sir, invoicing is directly in the name of A. Directly A. I mean, the foreign
From
entity.
Singapore to A?
A, sir. A.
No bill to ship, right?
Yeah, no bill to ship.
Okay.
Ramanji, isn't there a specific exemption given under notification, IGST notification, not under CGST notification for this?
For out to out service,
where you are subscribing service from a non-taxable territory and then exporting it to another non-taxable territory. Maybe there is a specific exemption under the IGST exemption notification.
Sir, let us check.
I think Schedule 3 is there. Schedule 3 is there.
Sorry, please. So as far as I remember, that exemption is for services provided by a non-tax person situated outside India to another person situated outside India. But we can see the language once.
Person outside India is otherwise not covered.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Are we ending? There's too much silence.
Yeah, we are just opening the one exemption notification.
Sir, revenue neutrality concept is independent of import of services which has the presence in India, and it is within the territory of the India. So again, he has made from Indian territory a separate bill. So the exemption notification will not come to his rescue.
I think there are some tribunal judgments of service tax also on this specific case, that in case of RCM, the concept of revenue neutrality can only apply for waiving of the penalty in RCM transaction. But the tax itself cannot be waived off on the ground of revenue neutrality, because once the tax has been levied, it has to be paid.
Sir, with respect to this case study
setting
number
aside.
with respect to this case study number 4, I could find a IGST exemption interlist notification number 9/2017, wherein interlist number 1, and which is clause C, which reads: so service received from a provider of service located in a non-taxable territory and provided to a person who is located in a non-taxable territory will be exempt.
So it is saying from non-taxable to non-taxable.
Exactly, sir. Non-taxable territory to non-taxable territory.
Sir, here is the billing is done on A, and A has further raised a bill on B. Can we say that it is an out-to-out transaction in that case?
According to me, in this case, there are separate two transactions.
Exactly.
One is an import of service and another is an export of service. And they both cannot be clubbed together because GST is levied on the transaction basis. Right? Every transaction has to be analyzed independently, irrespective of whatever has been the outcome or whatever is the output supply of it. In the similar manner, can I say when I am liable to take ITC, I will not take ITC and I will just pay tax on the value addition. I will pay on the value addition and I will also not take ITC. Again, it is a revenue neutral situation. Right. So when these both transactions are separate, section 9.353 over here, the IGST provision of import of service will be levied separately, and keeping aside the revenue neutrality ground, it has to be he is liable to pay tax.
But the point
Yeah,
I think
correct. Yes.
has to be explored is, I think which Ramandeep was also trying to make is, because services have been consumed ultimately by the recipient who is located in Vietnam. So whether we can say that the services are being provided from a person located in taxable territory to another person who's actually located in Vietnam, or do we have to say that no, the service have been received by a person located in India and he has to...
Mohit, this will be governed by place of supply provisions, I believe, wherein right. And also the recipient definition also says the person liable to pay.
Place of supply comes, Arup, you give your answer and then bring the session to a close now.
No, I think yeah, I'll also concur with the same view that these are two separate transactions, and therefore the RCM would be payable on this.
I feel it will be out and out supply. So the contract will be back to back.
Yes.
So it will be out and out supply.
It is not necessary. It is not necessary that the contract will be out and out. I may have taken service and I may have provided it to separate contracts.
But the content will remain the same. That is what I think. The same services. That is what has been said. Same services are provided.
Correct.
So
it is like trading of goods.
So 99% is it's the same services which has been understood, only like different party mechanism. Cash flowing is another part, but the underlying supply has been happened out to and out. That is what it appears. Prima facie it appears to me.
Yeah, but actually, if you go through 5.3, the government specify categories of supply of goods or services of both. The tax on, sorry, this is regarding this. So here, sorry. So subject to provisions, section 2, there shall be levied a tax called integrated goods or services and tax on all interstate supplies of goods or services of both. So when I'm importing the services, when the invoice is being raised in my name, I am making the payment of the foreign exchange to the party in Vietnam. So maybe there I cannot take the argument that there is no import of service. So that is, again, I have to go to the definition of import of service. But I think there it will be a challenge to say that there is no import of service for this. So I think, yes, and other case studies we have already discussed. This we have already discussed on the late fees part. And about splitting, I think we'll take this in the valuation. So that will not be a problem.
Yeah, valuation and even in composite supply we can take.
Yeah, in composite supply also.
Yeah, section 8 is related.
So with this, we come to the conclusion of the first day of GST Tapasya.
That was a great song.
नाम में कुछ रखा है इसमें. So as soon as you see the name only, you feel some, you have some good feelings about learning, fresh. So thank you everyone, and we would request you to kindly join in for the next session, because every session would be like insightful as we had the discussion today, because we are proud to say that CGPI boasts of a national presence of persons of repute, honor, and education and professional background from across India. So we have representatives from Eastern India, Southern India, West India, North India, across India, and the best of the minds are deliberating. So each of us will have something to take away from here. I'm sure about that. So we have our young dynamic member, CA Mohit Kolera ji. So maybe I would request him to offer a vote of thanks
Thank
to
you,
the
everyone.
participants.
His
Not
surname is
to
Cholera.
the thought leaders, to the participants.
Thank you, all the participants. We were not expecting such high participation in the first meeting, so there was a little bit goof up. So we had crossed 100 members, so we had to post a YouTube link on the group also. But we'll make sure that we have sorted this issue for the next meeting. And again, thank you. And we wish such participation in all the lectures henceforward. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ramandeep sir, Nitin sir, Ishan bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
and
you,
have a
everyone.
wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.